In the deadliest incident since the start of the ground operation in Gaza, the IDF announced that 21 soldiers were killed in an explosion, causing 2 buildings to collapse. This as the IDF has now encircled the southern Gazan stronghold of Khan Yunis on day 109 of the war to destroy Hamas. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
The incident in Gaza caused the highest number of fatalities to IDF soldiers since the start of the ground operation in Gaza on October 27th. The explosion was apparently triggered after terrorists fired an RPG at a tank just 600 meters inside central Gaza near the Israeli border community of Kisufim. The soldiers were operating in the border seam area to prepare for the safe return of Israeli residents to their homes evacuated after the Hamas rampage on October 7th.
לפי הידוע לנו בשלב זה, סביב השעה 4, ככל הנראה נורה טיל RPG על ידי מחבלים לעבר טנק שהבטיח את הכוח. ובמקביל לכך אירע פיצוץ של 2 מבנים דו-קומתיים. המבנים קרסו כתוצאה מהפיצוץ הזה. בשעה שמרבית הכוח נמצא בתוכם ובסמוך אליהם. המבנים ככל הנראה התפוצצו כתוצאה ממוקשים שכוחותינו הטמינו בהם והיו לקראת תהליך של פיצוץ המבנים ותשתיות הטרור במרחב.
Prime Minister Netanyahu issued a statement saying, "We experienced one of the most difficult days since the outbreak of the war. I would like to stand by the dear families of our heroic fighters who fell on the battlefield. I know that for these families, their lives will change forever." The IDF is still probing the cause of the blast. Rescue efforts continued for several hours after the incident.
אנחנו עדיין מבררים ומתחקרים את פרטי האירוע, את הסיבה לפיצוץ.
It's day 109 of the war in Gaza, and fierce battles are ongoing as the IDF continues its new offensive on the western Khan Yunis area in the southern Gaza Strip. 4 brigades led by the 98th Division are involved in the offensive, which began with a series of airstrikes on Hamas sites in the area. The IDF aims to dismantle Hamas's military framework in the Khan Yunis area with the new push. An estimated 50 Hamas operatives, including several commanders, have been killed by ground troops from the paratroopers, Givati, and 7th Brigades. The soldiers have encircled the Khan Yunis refugee camp and are beginning to maneuver into the area where several Hamas sites are located. The offensive is likely to last several more days, which will include the IDF raiding key Hamas strongholds, outposts, and infrastructure. The Khan Yunis area has many civilians sheltering, along with hospitals, and the IDF is trying to avoid casualties among non-combatants.
They deny the kidnapping of our children, the murder of our grandchildren, the rape of our daughters. The new Nazis we face today will stop at nothing to destroy civilization as we know it. The World Jewish Congress was created exactly for these times like this, so every Jew can fall asleep at night knowing they are safe in their own home. We are a voice for the Jewish people everywhere. We are the World Jewish Congress.
And despite the tragic loss, the war continues as Egypt has issued a warning to Israel that ties between the 2 countries would be put at risk should the IDF attempt to control the Philadelphia corridor, a buffer zone that runs along Egypt's border with Gaza. In an official statement by the head of Egypt's State Information Services, he said that any reoccupation of this corridor by Israel would pose a grave threat to Egyptian-Israeli relations. He added that Egypt is capable of defending its interests and sovereignty over its land and borders, and rejected Israeli claims of weapons smuggling across the border. Israel is seeking to curb the flow of illegal weapons and ammunition from Egypt into Gaza via the terror tunnels. Egypt has said it's also destroyed over 1,500 tunnels to date. Incredible just how many terror tunnels Hamas has built over the years, and all with international aid. And so joining us now with more on the war in Gaza and the ongoing fighting in Khan Yunis is Brigadier General in the Reserves Emil Avivi, founder and CEO of the Israel Defense and Security Forum. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rida.
So a very difficult day for Israel as 21 IDF soldiers were killed. There's still intense fighting going on in Khan Yunis, a Hamas stronghold. What can you tell us about the events of the last 24 hours?
So, talking about Khan Yunis, we have been attacking in Khan Yunis with 7 brigades. I don't recall in the history of Israel any battle where 7 brigades participated in the same battle. And our division 98, that is commanding these brigades, is moving forward with the destruction of the Khan Yunis brigade, probably the strongest brigade in Gaza. This is the brigade of Sinwar, and we estimate that Sinwar and Def are in this area and probably also hostages. And as the IDF is surrounding and closing on this stronghold, we see, of course, Hamas trying to defend, and the fighting is fierce. But what is amazing to see is how the IDF adapted to underground warfare. We see our soldiers fighting in the tunnels, destroying terrorists in the tunnels, overcoming booby traps and improvised explosive devices, and moving forward in this very elaborate underground infrastructure. And this makes me very, very confident that it's just a matter of time until we see the collapse of Hamas. The IDF has learned fast how to adapt to this warfare. Yes, we have casualties. Yes, occasionally Hamas succeeds to hit here and there. But the overall picture is clear. Hamas is going to be eradicated. It's going to be destroyed. And every day we're moving one more step towards reaching our goals of war.
So I do want to ask you, because, Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that Israel will stop at nothing short of full victory against Hamas. Meanwhile, though, Gadi Eisenkot and others in the war cabinet are casting doubt on this claim. So what's your take? Will Israel, in fact, be able to achieve a total victory over Hamas?
I'm sure 100% that we will, and I'm saying that professionally as a general. I am very worried about leaders showing weakness. We need at this time Churchills, not Chamberlains. And we need a confident leadership. I think we can really put our trust in the abilities of the Israeli Defense Forces. We have shown how we can destroy completely Hamas' ability to govern and manage militarily the northern part of Gaza. We're doing so now in Khan Yunis in a very successful way. I heard Brigadier General Goldfuss, the commander of Division 98, he gave us like a half an hour briefing. And you see a strong, decisive commander who knows exactly what he's doing. All the soldiers on the ground are sure of their abilities and success. And I wish all our leaders and society would be as strong and resolute as our soldiers are on the battleground.
And, I want to ask you, because there's a lot of international pressure for another ceasefire. How would a ceasefire now affect the IDF's mission in Gaza?
This, of course, will assist Hamas and then will require for us to renew the fight, and maybe we'll encounter more difficulties than we might have encountered without that. But we have the hostages. And we understand that the fighting against Hamas is going to be years until we really dismantle all the terror infrastructure. So if we have an opportunity to release the hostages, even if it means a few weeks of ceasefire, I think the government will probably agree to that. I trust that the IDF
to get all the hostages
will know how to renew what they need to do.
All right. Brigadier General in the Reserves, Amir Avivi, thank you so much for your analysis today.
Thank you.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple. And a new Israeli deal for the release of the hostages is reportedly on the table. According to an Axios exclusive, the deal could see up to a 2-month pause in fighting and the release of all the remaining hostages. The details in the following report. News site Axios reported late Monday night that Israel has given Hamas a proposal through Qatari and Egyptian mediators that would include up to 2 months of a pause in fighting as part of a multi-phase deal that would see all the remaining 136 hostages released. The report cited unnamed Israeli and U.S. officials. In exchange, Israel would release a pre-negotiated amount of Palestinian prisoners and the redeployment of Israeli defense forces so that some would be moved out of main population centers and would allow a gradual return of Palestinian civilians to Gaza City and the northern Gaza Strip. The proposed deal would be completed in 4 phases. The first phase would see the release of women, men over the age of 60 years old, and hostages who are in critical medical condition. The next phases would include the release of female soldiers, men under the age of 60 years old who are not soldiers, and then Israeli male soldiers and the bodies of deceased hostages. According to the report, Israeli officials said they are waiting for a response from Hamas, but remain cautiously optimistic about the ability to make progress, even in the coming days. It's important to note the deal would not officially end the war, but the officials cited said IDF operations in Gaza would likely be significantly smaller in scope and intensity after the 2-month pause. There are several deals and initiatives on the table for a hostages and ceasefire deal. Some are short-term, others envision a comprehensive peace plan between Israel and the Palestinians and other Arab neighbors. One of the common threads most of these deals share is a call for a 2-state solution with Israelis and Palestinians living side by side. Now, the focus, as usual, has been on Israel and whether it would agree to 2 states. But there's another side to this equation, Hamas and the Palestinians. Do they even want a 2-state solution? Well, don't hear it from me. Let's see exactly what Hamas leaders have to say about such a proposal for peace.
وهنا أقول مسألتين في حل الدولتين. المسألة الأولى، نحن لا نقبل حل الدولتين. هذا مصطلح مرفوض، لأنه معناه أنك أنت لك دولة موعودة ومطلوب أنك أيضا تعترف بالدولة الأخرى اللي هي الكيان الصهيوني. مشروعنا الفلسطيني اللي عليه شبه إجماع وطني فلسطيني، حتى اللي عنده رأي مضطر أن يقوله بسبب مقتضيات السياسة، لكن الإجماع الفلسطيني أو شبه الإجماع الفلسطيني حقنا في فلسطين لا تراجع عنه، من البحر إلى النهر ومن رأس الناقورة إلى الرشاش أو خليج العقبة.
So Khalid Mashal, one of the political leaders of Hamas, outright rejects 2 states. He clearly says he only sees one solution, the annihilation of the state of Israel, the eradication of its Jewish population, and its occupation by Hamas. Oh, and hear what he has to say about Western youth helping this cause in the same interview.
أي دولة فلسطينية. طبعا إحنا بالنسبة لموقف حماس وموقف الشعب الفلسطيني في أغلبيته العظمى، خاصة بعد 7 أكتوبر، أظن تجدد الحلم والأمل. فلسطين من البحر إلى النهر، من الشمال إلى الجنوب. وهذا حتى كما قلت لك أصبح شعار في الولايات المتحدة وفي العواصم الغربية وعند الجمهور الغربي الأمريكي والغربي، إنه الشعب فلسطين حرة من النهر إلى البحر. هذه شعار الطلاب الأمريكان وفي العواصم الأوروبية كذلك.
So 2-state solution out, 1-state solution, check. Corrupting Western youth, check. So what's next? How exactly do they hope to achieve their goal of a 1-state solution? Maybe this clip of Ghazi Hamad, another Hamas leader, will enlighten us.
إسرائيل دولة لا مقام لها على أرضنا. إحنا الدولة لابد أن نزيلها، لأنه بالفعل هي تعتبر كارثة أمنية وعسكرية وسياسية للأمة العربية والإسلامية، يجب أن تنتهي. لذلك إحنا لا نخجل من نقول ذلك بكل قوة، إنه إسرائيل لازم نأدبها، وحنأدبها مرة ثانية وثالثة، ومش هذا حتكون طوفان الأقصى أول مرة، لا حتكون ثانية وثالثة ورابعة، لأنه إحنا لدينا إصرار ولدينا قرار ولدينا إمكانيات أن نقاتل ونحارب.
Well, there you have it, October 7th, again and again and again. No 2-state solution, no state of Israel. So for all those calling for a ceasefire, for all those calling for peace, for all those condemning Israel, maybe you should take it up with Hamas instead. And moving on, the world's focus has shifted to talk about Gaza the day after the war. As part of the ongoing discussions, the United States and other countries are calling on the Palestinian Authority to take a leading role in post-war Gaza. Israel rejects this demand. Joining me now to discuss the role of the Palestinian Authority and if they are still a relevant partner for peace is founder and director of Palestinian Media Watch, Itamar Marcus. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
So Itamar, you've been on the show many times, and we've discussed sort of the rampant incitement to terrorism from the Palestinian Authority leaders over the years. Is this still the case today, or has there been a change since October 7th?
If we were certain before October 7th that the Palestinian Authority was not a partner for peace with Israel because of everything they've said and taught, since October 7th we have the final stamp of approval. The Palestinian Authority, many people have said, oh, they haven't condemned what happened on October 7th. That's an understatement. They have absolutely celebrated what happened on October 7th. The Fatah, on one of its social media platforms, pasted a picture of a rat lying down on its back on an Israeli flag, and then a boot with a Palestinian flag on it trampling the rat. This was the attitude of the Palestinian Authority. A day or two into it, on Palestinian Authority official TV, a Fatah leader said, we woke up to a morning of joy, celebration, and victory. This was the PA. The PA has been celebrating the murder of Israelis for the last 25 years, and they continued even more greatly because this was the ultimate murder of Israelis. Now, I want to add one additional point to this. It wasn't just celebrating as a nationalistic Palestinian success. It was also celebrating it as a religious success for Allah.
So this leads me to my next question. Is the PA able to reform? Is it up to the task? I mean, especially considering the vast majority of Palestinians no longer even support
the Palestinian Authority has been so successful in its hate education over the last 20, 25 years, educating children from the time they're able to understand until they're 17, 18. What happened was Palestinians reached teenage and they said, wait a second, Palestinian Authority has been teaching me all of these hate messages and that I have to kill the Jews and kill the Israelis all these years. But Hamas is doing it better. Why don't I join Hamas? And the PA literally, through their messages, created the power base for Hamas. Today, the Palestinian Authority, because they're not perceived as being involved in terror enough, has only supported between 10 and 15% of the population. So the problem is way beyond the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority certainly can't rule because they created the problem. They can't be part of the solution. But even the Palestinian population itself, it needs an outside force. Let's look at Germany after World War II. Germany after World War II, the international community was responsible for education, responsible for culture. They took over everything in post-war Germany because they understood how evil this was. Germany, the Nazi Party, was only in power from 1933 to 1945. Talking about 12 years. The Palestinian Authority has been poisoning its youth for over 30 years, since 1994.
And so what is the word or feeling on the Palestinian street? I mean, we talk about the extremism and the hatred, but is there any desire for a two-state solution?
Polls have found desire for a two-state solution very low. I don't remember the last poll, if it was 30%, 20%. It's very low, but almost more significant, even in those polls, they're not asking what happens after the state. A number of years ago, a poll was taken which asked, if we have a two-state solution and we get everything that we needed, including refugees, etc., should this be the end of the conflict, or do we continue until we liberate all of Palestine? And about 60, 70% at the time said even if we get a two-state solution, that's a jumping board to liberate all of Palestine. So even that little percentage of Palestinians, that small percentage of Palestinians who are saying they're willing to have a two-state solution, it's not a sincere two-state solution because they believe it's just a step toward destroying Israel.
All right, well, Itamar Marcus, thank you so much for your analysis today.
Thank you.
And IDF reservists have come up with a unique way to try to send messages to Israeli hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza's terror tunnels. It's old-style transistor radios blasting army radio into the tunnel shaft in the hope the hostages will hear it and know Israel has not given up on them. ILTV's William Sharon has more.
After capturing Hamas tunnels in the northern Gaza Strip, Israeli soldiers have been placing some unusual gear inside. Old-style dial-operated transistor radios. They headed deep into the tunnels until the devices could no longer receive AM transmissions from Israel. That was about 10 meters down and inside the upper stories of the Palestinian terrorist tunnel network. The chance that hostages could hear Israeli radio was increased after the government took steps to add greater range to the AM radio signal to give better reception for Israeli civilians in bomb shelters. Troops in Gaza are benefiting as they are being able to stay informed with their cell phones being taken away for security reasons.
We got a few thousands of them, and we are giving it to soldiers and to families that are still around the borders in the north and in the south.
The tunnel experiments holds out a chance to reach out to the captives with custom-composed morale-raising army radio broadcasts.
The hostages, as we know, listened, some of them at least, listened to the radio. And when you're in Gaza, it's again, it's better receiving of AM frequencies than the FM. And they listened to that before too. And now we're trying to get it to everywhere in Gaza Strip. Hopefully that it will get to the hostages as it happened before.
And on the other fronts, Hezbollah has fired missiles into Israel, attempting to target an Air Force base in Meron. Meanwhile, the U.S. and UK pounded Houthi targets in Yemen in a fresh series of joint airstrikes against the terrorist entity to prevent attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. UK Prime Minister Sunak threatened more strikes on Tuesday if the terror group continues its attacks. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
The Pentagon said strikes in Yemen hit 8 Houthi targets, including an underground storage site and Houthi missile and surveillance capabilities. The Iran-backed Houthis have been targeting ships that they say are linked to Israel and the West that travel through the important Red Sea trade route. The U.S. statement read, "Our aim remains to de-escalate tensions and restore stability in the Red Sea. At the same time, this is a warning to the Houthi leadership. We will not hesitate to defend lives and the free flow of commerce in one of the world's most critical waterways in the face of continued threats." This was the 8th strike by the U.S. against Houthi targets and the 2nd joint operation with the UK. Closer to home, visiting French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu is in the region in an effort to lower the chances of a full-scale war between Israel and Hezbollah. Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Gallant held separate talks with Lecornu. Gallant told him a war in the north will be challenging for Israel but devastating for Hezbollah and Lebanon. Israel will not cease fire until it can guarantee the safe return of the evacuated northern communities to their homes following a change in the security situation along the border. The remarks came as cross-border fighting continued, with the IDF carrying out airstrikes against a series of Hezbollah targets in 5 areas of South Lebanon. Sites hit include a weapons storage facility where Hezbollah operatives were gathered. The IDF also hit 3 observation posts and another military building.
And in a show of solidarity with the Jewish global community, tech mogul Elon Musk privately visited the Auschwitz-Birkenau Nazi concentration camp on Monday with his 3-year-old son. He was accompanied by conservative commentator Ben Shapiro, the European Jewish Association chairman Rabbi Menachem Margolin, and Holocaust survivor Gidon Lev. While there, he attended a prayer, lit a candle, and stood in a moment of silence. Musk spoke later in the day at a conference addressing the rise of anti-Semitism since the October 7th attack. And now, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Rainy showers are expected around most of the country tonight, with lows of around 12 degrees Celsius or 53 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, we'll see more rainy showers alongside steady top temperatures, seeing highs of about 17 degrees Celsius or 62 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channel, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and don't forget to check out our new and improved website, ILTV.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Ladarga Velazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.